Hello, Florida. This is Joe Mullins of the Live Workshop Play Show. And yes, it is football season. You got to get out there and support your teams. I'm curious to who's going to be the champion this year. Is it going to be one of our Florida teams, which, we got the greatest teams in the country. We've got the Jacksonville Jaguars, which I'm sporting that shirt today, going to represent Jaguars in Tampa, which is kind of crazy. But you know what? They're not big rivalries. I think I'd be more concerned having a Philadelphia Eagles shirt or a Atlanta Falcons or a New Orleans Saints shirt on. So that I'm going to be a little more careful with. But football season's here. Exciting time. It's still a little hot, still a little crazy. Will it be the Miami Dolphins? Will they have a great year? Will it be the Atlanta Falcons? Will it be the Carolina Panthers? No. Carolina Panthers, they may win one or two games. All right, Charlotte, don't give me a hard time about saying that. But it's going to be an interesting time. And we'll have a lot of great speakers on. We're going to be talking a lot about sports and entertainment coming up. We're also going to have some really, really big NFL guests coming in. Eric Dickerson coming in talking. So we're going to have a lot of great sports shows coming up. And Eric's going to be giving his opinion on the pay for play that they're doing in college now, which, Eric Dickerson may know a thing or two about being paid to play football, as that big scandal that he had with the Pony Express. So looking forward to it. It's going to be exciting fall. Looking forward to it. Great times. We've just finished up an amazing summer with the FIFA World Cup, the bigger ones coming back. So a lot of good stuff. Entertainment is such a key part of our area, but entertainment is not just the only driver we have in Florida. It's also tourism. Tourism is very big. We have a lot of people coming in. We've got a lot of industry here, and we've got a huge, huge housing market. One of the biggest in the country. So many people are moving to our area. It's unbelievable. And with me today, I've got a very special guest. Steve, if you want to introduce yourself to the guests.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, I'm Steve O'Neill. I'm a broker at Faustina Trump Real Estate here in Daytona Beach, Florida, and very happy to be on the show today.
So now, Steve, everybody in every county in the country, as when I was a commissioner, everybody would complain. And from traveling to different areas, I noticed they were complaining about the same thing. We don't want any more growth. We don't want any more people here. And I couldn't figure out, I said, if all these country or counties and all these states are seeing this massive growth, which of the 50 is seeing the decline? And really, none of them are. They're coming everywhere. But Florida real estate seems to be a little bit bigger, a little bit more demand. You've got people screaming they want a moratorium, which, we're going to be breaking that moratorium down. They don't work. They're insane thinking they're going to work. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And also how dependent areas are on real estate and housing market, and what would happen if the governor does win the tax break on homes. I mean, we're going to see growth. I would think we'd see growth like we've never seen it before, in demand going up because so many people will want that house with no income tax or no state property tax. Steve, what is your input on the industry today? Are we seeing it grow, fall? What do you think's going on?
Well, that's the biggest question I usually get is, where is the market today? But we really don't have just one market here. We've got several distinct markets. We've got our single family, we've got our condos and condotels, and we've got commercial. And they're all going in different directions today. There's a different status on each one of those.
Now, you talk about condos, and condos are a very hot market here in the state of Florida, but they're also very controversial right now. Right now, condos, and I have a bunch of them. I own a bunch. I invested heavy into condos, but I am seeing association fees triple, quadruple since last year, and it's getting crazy owning them. I could own a $5 million home cheaper than I could when you pay the payment. You pay the association dues, then you pay the special assessment, then you pay the special of the special assessments, then you pay the special assessment of your ex-wife or your ex-spouse, then you pay it's crazy. It's all these crazy assessments you're seeing. So what is going on with the condo market in Florida? Do you see it declining? Do you see people getting scared with this uncertainty?
Yes. Ever since we had the Surfside condo collapse, the state has begun taking a series of actions, including structural assessments on any condo 30 years or older that's 3 stories or higher, 25 years if it's near the ocean, And then they've got to get that done in a very short period of time. And then they have to fund all the repairs that are needed for that. Add on top of that, they've got to go through an audit on their reserves, and they've got to bulk up their reserves to a given level. And now you're seeing that all these condo owners are getting whacked with big assessments. And a lot of them can't afford it. So they're trying to get out from under that.
Are you seeing an increase in condos? Are you seeing an increase in people selling and leaving condos, or is this increase pushing them out with these fees going up?
Yeah, and the way we like to measure that and talk about that is typically by months of inventory that we're seeing on the market. So in single family residences today, we're seeing about 7 months of inventory. And for perspective, 4 to 6 months is considered a balanced market. So 7 months is starting to tip a little bit. But if you go to the condo market, we've got 15 months of inventory. And in condotels, we've got 19 months. That's way tipped over. It's an imbalanced market. And that's why we're seeing a lot of people are trying to bail to get out from under those HOA fees.
So you'd call that a buyer's market then? That's a buyer where buyers can come in, which is rare because just a few years ago, it was a seller's market, because I remember buying some condos and I said, I want to, I'm a bargain guy. I was taught by a guy who, he said, hey, always cut the corner a little bit and see if you can get a little bit lower, a little bit better deal. So I always wanted a special price on something. I had the privilege to work with Anthony Robbins, and Anthony Robbins introduced me to Warren Buffett and so many other great guys. And I always heard one thing: look for the deal, look for the deal. So when I went out to buy these condos, I was making, if it's 500,000, I want to offer 485. Now, here I make that offer, and 5 minutes later I hear, no, they got an offer of a list plus 10. And I said, what is plus 10? I've never heard of list plus 10. They said, it's where they've offered a little bit more. I remember when I said, look, I'll just pay whatever they're asking. And I still didn't get the condo. And I got really confused on that. I said, how did I not get the condo? I paid what they were asking. And they said someone else caught it right as you were, and they offered 20% more, and they're going to go with them. I said, yeah, but I'm a nice guy. Tell them to sell to me. I'm a nice guy. And I talked to them first. Didn't happen. Couldn't get it. So with that is not the market in condos today, though.
No, not at all. That's a very competitive market. We do not have a competitive market in condos today. Add to that your condotels and a good portion of your condos themselves need to be cash deals, because you can't get a loan for them. And that's because of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are now maintaining a list of condo buildings throughout the country that they're not going to finance. And in Florida, if you will find yourself on that list more than likely if you have not completed your structural assessment and your reserve audit.
That's crazy. That you say that. Just a few months ago, I own a lot of apartment complexes and a lot of condos and a lot of things. And I was doing a refi, and we had, matter of fact, it put the old loan matured, and it put us almost in not bankruptcy. I got to be careful using that. That's a little strong word, but it almost put us in default. And the old bank started having a fit, saying, hey, you said you were going to move these. We don't want to renew them. Well, they didn't want to renew them, but guess what? No other new bank. Every time I went to 10 different banks, and every time I got the same answer: we're not loaning on owner occupied units. And I went, what do you mean? These are great. They're getting me money. They're making me money. We're in Florida, the biggest demand. They said, we don't care. We're not owning on unowner occupied units. And they said, especially condos. And I didn't understand that. Now that's making sense.
Well, and two, when you've got large quantities of condos, like along the beach, anywhere in Florida along the beach, you've got a lot of condos that are second and third homes for wealthy individuals. They don't live there. They may come down there for a month a year. They may have a friend come over for a week or a weekend or something, but most of the time they're empty. So they're not really contributing to that local economy very much, because they're empty.
Now, you were talking about the housing market earlier. Is the housing market a buyer's market, or is it a seller's market?
So right now, for the single family homes, that's an interesting situation. We have about 7 months of inventory. So I would consider that mostly balanced between the two. 4 to 6 months is balanced. Seven's leaning a little bit, but it's still a good market. The issue with single family isn't the inventory, it's the pricing. So what we usually see as a classic year in, year out change in the market is that from about August through January, prices and inventory goes down. And then from about February to June, prices and inventory go back up. So where we're at today is our prices are exactly where they were median prices a year ago. And so that market, the biggest issue is the sold to list ratio. So that means how much money did the seller get on the sale compared to what they listed it for. And right now, historically, we would see 97, 98%. That's very common. Right now, we're at about 93.5%. So that means there's about 6% give back from the sellers to get from listing to closing. That's a pretty large amount of money. The median house price is $385,000. 6% of that is almost $24,000. So now that $385,000 looks a lot more like 361. That's the gap we're having to deal with, and the interest rates.
Steve, give us just a minute. I want to keep that going. I want to talk a little bit more about it. I want to talk about moratoriums. I want to talk about the governor tax incentive to eliminate property tax. He says we're all paying rent on our homes to the government, which sounds like it is what's happening. I want to talk all about that right after this commercial break. And we want to welcome you back to Live, Work, Shop, Play. What an amazing, amazing show we got going here. It is telling the world why Florida is the best place to live, work, shop, and play. Steve, I want to thank you again. You know, this is so good what we're talking about. But when we left the break, we were speaking about the housing market. And if it's a buyer or sellers, we determined that the houses are a little stronger than the condos and some challenging. Now, let me ask you the take on this. Some of the biggest, hottest topics all across the country are moratoriums. That word, moratoriums. And I think it's the craziest word. I tell everybody, you're crazy. You're talking about stopping your economy. You're talking about stopping growth. You can't do that. If we could do it, I'm going to do it for all the older ladies in this country. I'm going to tell them, hey, I've learned how to stop growth. I'm going to make you 25 again. We'll stop everybody at that age. You can't do it. You can't stop growth. You can define it, but you can't stop it. So they're talking about moratoriums. Some towns like Volusia has a good balance, but Ormond Beach is more housing oriented. Orlando has pockets in it that's more housing oriented. That get most of their income from the housing. Flagler County, where our show started out, Flagler County is 95% dependent on housing, taxes from the houses, property tax. And then you turn around and get Tampa, Sarasota. Some of those areas are very dependent on property tax. But you got some that are strong economies, strong and good economies, and they're thriving and doing well. But if the governor comes out and passes this tax exempt for property tax, and he stops people paying taxes into these counties, what is that going to do to a county that's 95% dependent on the property tax?
Well, that entirely depends on the plan for how he's going to backfill some of that tax money. The budget would not withstand the complete elimination of all the property taxes. It's too big a portion. So they would have to come up with some kind of hybrid plan, whereas they reduce the property taxes by some amount and then maybe backfilled on the state sales tax.
But even if you do that, you still, when you're at 95%, a 10% reduction is massive. And you're going to talk about those counties getting more benefit than other counties. You're talking about starting a state battle, people getting upset that we already see that in the school systems. $1, everybody puts in $1. Flagler County gets back 85 cents. Miami gets $1.50, and you see all this quibbling going on. Orlando gets $1.20. You see all this quibbling going, hey, we want dollar for dollar. We want it going back in. And as an elected official, I saw that more as the commissioner. I saw that more in areas where they were getting more benefit. And my problem with that is if you stop growth, if you stop the income tax on property taxes, if you stop both of those, and I say income taxes, property tax, if you stop both of those, I understand we have a lot of infrastructure problems. I understand we have heavy traffic. I understand we have a lot of areas that money was deferred and not put in. But how do you do those improvements if you stop those two areas? Because you got one or two areas of doing it. Your new growth can help define and clean up some of the old stuff, or you got to get your old growth paying a higher share to fix it up because now you lost that new growth. So if you did a moratorium, how do you make that work?
You don't. I don't know how that works because you still need infrastructure. We still need water, sewer, electrical. You know, people still have the right to build a house on land that they own. And companies have a right to build subdivisions on land that they own. And we need it. We have an influx in the Volusia County area of about 90 people a day since COVID happened. And that hasn't stopped. It's slowed down a little bit. I think we're down to about 70 people a day now. But do the math on that. That's hundreds of people every week. Where are we going to put them?
Well, you brought up a good point. COVID's a perfect example of what happens to your economy when you shut it down, when you stop it. It made a disaster out of the country. It made a disaster out of many areas. People from Hawaii were coming into these county commission meetings nationally. And I'm sitting up here going, we did well. We did great. Our counties are doing great. We're open. We want tourism coming to Florida. And they're looking at us going, we need money. Can y'all send us some money? We need extra money. We're shut down. And we don't want to be like Florida where you're walking over bodies. I mean, you and I both were here during COVID. Did you ever step over a body in the street of Florida? I haven't.
Not that I can recall, no.
No, I think I'd remember that. I think I would remember something that traumatic. So you see here all this crazy propaganda. The market is dependent on new growth to help fix some of the old infrastructure. It's getting a developer in to come in and invest into that street. Maybe if he's cleaning a ditch out, to go ahead and clean a little further, because if he's smart, which most of them are, and they understand, that problem down the street could create a problem for his development, costing his houses. So he's going to have more of an incentive to clean it up. Not to mention impact fees. How do you replace the impact fees if you do a moratorium on growth? You can't turn around and say, we want your fees, but we're not going to allow you to grow. We're not going to allow you to build. So you can't do that. So none of that makes sense when they talk moratorium. It's a selling pitch point that doesn't work.
Well, and the city of Daytona Beach has recently decided they're going to implement some new linkage fees as well. And they're presently, I think the commission meeting is tonight regarding adding impact fees on top of the linkage fees. So what they're trying to do is fee to death all development to slow it down. It becomes a de facto moratorium.
Well, if they focus on growing the economy, if they focus on business, if they focus on sporting events, bring sporting events. Hell, the Masters brings millions and billions of dollars into Augusta, Georgia. We were talking about this the other day. If you didn't have the Masters, Augusta has 250,000 people. They'd be nothing. But it's one of the top growing and booming areas because of medical, because of military, and because of the Masters, the 3 M's. We don't have military in every one of our counties. We don't have medical in every one of our counties, but we do have growth in houses, and we do have an opportunity to have a strong, thriving businesses and economy. But that's not what they're focused on. They're focused on, let's stop all this and it'll cure the problem. I've never seen anyone stop something and it cure the problem.
Absolutely not. And what happens when you have to go out and maintain storm damaged infrastructure?
The taxpayer, I'll tell you what happens. That taxpayer that's sitting there going, we don't need any more bills here. We need a moratorium. They need to be prepared to triple and quadruple the property taxes, and they need to kiss DeSantis's tax break goodbye, because that's not going to happen, and we'll be able to maintain it. Because a county like Flagler County, which there's many of them, Flagler's just an example, if you stop growth in a 95% base where they get their income, you have devastated that county. And now these people on fixed incomes, you're going to have to go back to, and you're going to have to say, hey, we now need you to do what we're doing to Joe Mullins and all the other investors of condos. We need you to pay 3 times what you're paying in association fees, impact fees, infrastructure fees. and it gets crazy. It gets out of hand. That's what we're seeing in this state. And that's why I tell people this moratorium stuff's crazy. Now, as a realtor, what do you think's the solution?
I think we need more development. And I think the key to it, the way we can get out of some of the animosity that's happening between the various parties in the conversation, is that we tie it, the infrastructure development, along with the residential development. And that hasn't always been done that way. Lots of times the residential development will get way out in front of the infrastructure development. And then the cities will come along and they'll whack the developers with enormous impact fees because they got to catch up. So what really needs to be done is planned growth and the infrastructure tied with the development. That's the answer.
Now, I agree. Plan growth, defining your growth. I always campaigned on preserving your past while you define or shape your future. Preserve your past. Make sure you keep it intact. But plan for the future. Define your future. Make it look beautiful. Make it advanced. You can still have Victorian and old things, but you're going to have internet in them. Nobody's going to live in one of those houses where they don't get internet. You got to have TV. Nobody's going to live in a place without a TV. So you got to have broadband. You got to have stuff like that. That broadband's expensive. You can do private-public partnerships, but I guarantee you, no private company's going to want to come here when they're hearing these clowns scream, let's do moratoriums. Let's do more. It scares the hell out of business and it makes them go a different direction. And there's 4,000 plus counties in the country. We're one of those counties. The listeners, all my listeners, you are one of those counties of the 4,000. Don't think the other 3,999 plus are not going after what you want. And they're going to make a little more incentive-based driven. So you can run them out. You can tell them to leave, but you're going to wish you didn't, and then you're going to end up having a devastated economy. Steve, tell people why Daytona would be a great area to live, work, and shop and play in.
Well, Daytona is a large, small town, if that makes any sense to you. I came from Seattle originally, and Daytona doesn't have anywhere near the problems that the large towns have. People complain about our traffic all the time, but I can still drive all the way across town in 20 minutes. And so, yeah, we have a little more traffic than we used to, but nothing like Miami, Fort
Nothing
Lauderdale.
like Tampa. Tampa, you come from Orlando to Tampa, you can plan on getting a hotel between the two.
And even Jacksonville's getting back now. But so Daytona is a nice little place. It's not overrun with traffic too much. It's in a great little geographic hole weather-wise. So most of the hurricanes go to the south or to the north and don't hit us. So it's just an anomaly of Cape Canaveral. But where Daytona is located, it's got better weather. It's got beautiful beaches. The cost of living is low. The traffic and congestion is low. So it's got a lot going for it.
Yeah, and you'll see an influx of people. When the Tampa Bay Jaguars win the Super Bowl this year, notice I was neutral. Tampa Bay Jaguars, when they win the Super Bowl this year, you'll see an influx of people. Steve, how do people get in touch with you to get to the area or see the area? How can they use you to help shop and look at the Best Buy?
They can always go to our website. That's FaustinaTrumpRealEstate.com. You can look me up. My phone number is 386-366-3607. Excuse me, there's a different one. We just updated it. It's 386-679-0102. That's the office number. And you can call me direct at 386-341-6969.
Steve, I want to thank you for joining us and look forward to having you more on the show. It's great having the insight of a professional, and it's good to get in this dialogue and talk about both sides, which I think is very important. But thank you for joining us this weekend. Have a great weekend, and let's keep Florida the best place to live, work, shop, and play.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you for having me today.
Have a great weekend. And remember, listeners, Florida, you're traveling here, you're visiting. It's the #1 tourist state in the world. If you come here and visit Daytona, consider the Volusia County area options. They're great. The coast, the economy they got, right up on the interstate. They're connecting right between Jacksonville and Orlando. Great area. But we've got so many great cities in the state of Florida, so many great counties and towns to live in. when you look here, get with someone like Steve. He is an amazing guy. Get with them and let them talk to you and show you some of the hidden secrets of this community, and they know them. Steve, thank you again.
Thank you.